So welcome everyone. It's a pleasure. It's a great pleasure to have a friend on the webinar today with Lawrence. So I usually start. So I've put my French typical French attire, which obviously we wear every day in France with always a bottle of wine. So that's for the cliche. Now for the introduction, we always start with a fun fact. So I'll start with that with you, Lawrence. So a fun fact about yourself.
Okay, I have two fun facts actually.
Okay, you're already starting to not being in the rules, so that's another French trait. Well done.
Okay, so that's three fun facts. No, first fun fact, which I find quite amusing because I'm half French, half English, so are you, is today is both a great day for France, a great day for the UK, for English people, because it's Appel du 18 juin when Charles de Gaulle asked to resist the Germans. It was 80 years ago, so it's very important in France. It's not a public holiday, unfortunately. We don't have enough of those. But it's also a very important day in England because it's the when the English and the coalition won the Battle of Waterloo. So I find that quite amusing that we see
really,
that as French people as being a great event, and we see that as a great event being in English. So
so
that was
that's a
my
fun, historical fact.
yeah. It was a trivia, ha. Okay, that's why I don't get invited as many dinners as I would like to. The other fun fact that I wanted to mention, I thought, okay, how can I present how French I am, even given that I'm called Lawrence Taylor and how that kind of accent. It was about 25 years ago, 20 years ago, I was in Aqaba in Jordan, doing a bit of backpacking. And I was at the bar of the hotel. It's not a hotel bar. It was literally a place where they had two bottles of whatever, and you start chit chatting, in English internationally, and suddenly the guy says, "But I realize he's French," or we switch to French, and he says, "So you are French, you are from Paris, and you are from this neighborhood in Paris. So this is how quintessentially French I am." Even in an obscure bar in Aqaba in Jordan, people will know exactly what kind of neighborhood I'm from. And I did not know that guy or anything. So voila.
That's very French. It's like that. But merde, but you are French, so that will talk to French people as a famous film. So now we've gone through the fun part. Can you give us 2 words of who you are and who is Retail for Brands?
So I'm Lawrence Taylor, half French, half English. I think I mentioned enough. I have now nearly 20 years of digital experience, digital marketing. Started in the UK, and then I was Global MD for digital platforms for the Havas Group, big holding group, especially here in France. Left about a year ago to launch Retail for Brands. Retail for Brands is we are omni-retail, and we help brands and consumers navigate the complexity of Amazon and marketplaces and the other marketplaces. And the approach of the way we do things is we really have an end-to-end approach to things from strategy to execution, which means that we need strategic people to go into the gritty detail of Amazon, because it's all about the detail and the troubleshooting. But also the tactical people to be able to have those conversations with CEOs and so forth. Because when you talk about Amazon, when you talk about marketplaces, you're also talking about the digital transformation of brands. And that's, I think, what's the most exciting in the job that you do and I do is taking those brands that had a very traditional approach to distribution to helping them in having a multi-retail digital distribution approach.
I totally agree with that. That true is like transformation and helping people to transform is really interesting, and I think we get a lot of our excitement in helping them and being successful. So I think that's what we all of us like enjoy in our work. So let's dive into France and what's it like? What's the landscape? We know in Germany and the UK, Amazon is a bit overwhelming, let's say, or very big? What I know, like France, Amazon is less big. What's the general landscape there?
I mean, you can't really have a retail strategy without Amazon, let's be honest. It's still about 22-23% market share in France. Whereas if you compare to the UK, it's closer to 40%. Germany, Spain is closer to 50%. So it's still a leader by a landslide. And then you have Cdiscount that is over 8%. You have Fnac Darty that do about a combined 4%. An invite-only retailer called Vente-Privée, VP now. So Amazon is still structural, but you can't have an Amazon-only approach. You need to have a multi-retail approach if you want to be able to reach all of your potential customers. And the truth is, depending on the category, in most categories, Amazon is going to be the leading digital retailer, if not pure retailer. So, for example, in the toy market, Amazon was second to Leclerc, which is a very big supermarket chain in France, until 2018. Now it's first, and it holds about 45% market share when it comes to selling toys online. So it's quite big in that sense. But there's other categories where you can't really not have Cdiscount or Fnac Darty. For example, if you're selling TVs, Cdiscount is going to be 50% of your market share for online sales. And then you're going to have Fnac Darty, and then you're going to have Amazon. So anything which actually is big, the beyond 30 kilos, all the white goods, that's going to be Cdiscount and Fnac Darty. Small items, small electronics, that's going to be more, you're going to need to use Amazon. And what is interesting is the real Trojan horse of Amazon were books in a lot of markets. Still very important for France. Obviously, Amazon are a bit obscure about how much that represents in their total revenue. But I'd say Amazon only represents anything between 12 to 15% of the book market share, whereas Fnac is still bigger than Amazon's going to be in general, and then all the independent bookstore owners that you could have. So Amazon only, depending on the category.
Yeah, and so you were saying that the small product is very, Amazon is very successful, and the bigger product is more the others. Is it a logistics problem? Is it that Amazon is struggling with logistics, or is it just in terms of habits? How does that?
It's a logistic thing. I mean, and in that sense, it's no different from other market. I always see that for Amazon, there's always a balance between how complicated something is going to be and how much revenue is going to drive. And the truth is, there's a question of logistics, but there's also a question in terms of delivery, but there's also a question of after sales, because those products very often need after sales, and Amazon doesn't really like to do a physical after sale. They're going to come and get your product, you're going to send back your product and they're going to send you another one. They don't care, but you don't do that with a $1,000 fridge, for example.
I get that. And so
it doesn't really go through the letterbox, does it?
No, not very well. You're right. Depends on letterbox maybe, but not the house. So are you saying the others are one of their competitive edges to have offer a better logistics or a better after service? That's why Cdiscount or the others are sort of competing well with Amazon?
Yes. So, for example, after sales, Fnac Darty has always positioned itself in terms of after sale. So that's part of their core offering.
They use their retail, like their physical retail.
Yeah,
space,
exactly. There used to be physical retail, and they did this transition, really playing the showrooming approach of things. So did Fnac. So they really played that. We don't play digital against physical. We're trying to have a combined experience, which when you're launching a product is actually quite exciting because, if you're selling into audio, for example, you need to hear at one point or another, and you're going to you're going to try the product in stores and then maybe buy it online because it's more convenient.
Okay. And so the first one is 22%, you said, around Amazon.
Yeah.
The second one is 8%.
Yeah.
And then the other one is 4%. So there's actually a very big gap. But like you said, I think it's very dependent on the category, because the difference will be much less, right? Because in some cases we heard that people were not selling very well on Amazon, and probably the others are making a better job.
So you have a bottle of wine in front of you.
True. Oh, indeed.
A good example in wine, spirits, and things like that. Cdiscount is from Bordeaux. So they were the first to create specific warehouses for wine. And for a wine seller, it's very important to have a product which hasn't been altered when it arrives to the end client. And they have a feeling that they can't really have that guarantee with Amazon because they don't have specific warehouses, right? Whereas Cdiscount is going to have a specific warehouse, they're going to have specific packaging, and in truth, there's more wine being sold on Cdiscount online than there is going to be, much more than there's going to be on Amazon. It's a small category on Amazon, wines. Spirits is actually bigger for Amazon.
Okay, it's strange to see that if that's a big market, that Amazon doesn't address it more aggressively. Like, I get it that the big, like, white goods, because they don't have physical stores, or Amazon doesn't have yet, anyway, in France, that I would get, okay, they can't compete. But on, like, spirits and wine, it's funny that they don't invest more. They don't try to get into that market. Do you get a feeling? Sometimes you get a feeling that it's like on Amazon Business, you can feel Amazon is investing in that. Do you get feelings that sometimes Amazon is investing, trying to catch up the others, or not really?
Well, I think Jeff Bezos very rightly said that he doesn't really look behind, right? He only looks at the final consumer. In that sense, my feeling is it's going to move on alcohol as soon as Amazon is going to be allowed to sell alcohol in the US. And then that's going to be massive, right? Okay. But currently it's impossible to sell alcohol on Amazon because of the legislation, which is slightly different state per state. And as soon as that changes, and I think it's in the pipe, I can totally imagine Amazon investing very heavily on making sure that alcohol is correctly handled in the US market, and therefore in all other markets.
That they have special warehouses or logistics which will work. Okay, I get it. Now, there was a lot of noise during COVID about Amazon being closed down, and that was like for people living in France, we heard a lot about it, but maybe for people outside, what really happened? What was the reason, and how did it all work out? Did it impact a lot of the sales? What happened?
Well, that's the funny thing is France was the one market where the warehouses actually were shut down, right? There's reason. Basically, there was arm wrestling between the French state and Amazon, and they didn't back out, right? And the reality is, all the products were still very much available on Amazon. The products that you buy every day, they were just, because of the way Amazon has set up, especially FBA, pan-regional FBA, it was hardly different. I know somebody that bought a cover for his ping pong table, right? Got it delivered in 24 hours through Amazon, and he was based in France.
Well, I actually bought a ping pong cover from Amazon, and it got delivered. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my reference.
So sorry. Okay, that's me. So yeah, it worked. I did do a lot of buying, but it's true that I've realized that specifically in France, French post services were really disrupted, and that still Amazon managed throughout the time to deliver. Okay, so on some units they did say, okay, we will have 3 weeks delivery time, but they always said it upfront,
Yeah,
and I've never had, especially in this period, like a promise which was not fulfilled.
yeah,
So either they say beforehand, okay, it will take 3 weeks, or they say it will take 4 days, and actually they deliver in 3 or 2 days. So
yeah.
I believe, for me, that's a big game changer. But I was wondering if you've seen any shift in that, like were the others like Cdiscount, Fnac also managing to fulfill orders in the same way with the same efficiency, or were they struggling because maybe they're using other logistics services?
Amazon did, Cdiscount actually did quite well. They unfortunately didn't really have the good surprise that you had with Amazon. So you would either have, express delivery, and that would be 3 days rather than one day, or
Mm-hmm.
standard delivery 1 week rather than 3 days. And then they would deliver it after a week or after 3 days. It wasn't like Amazon where they said, you're going to get that in the month, and actually you got it after 3 or 4 days. So you didn't have that really surprise effect.
Okay.
But they actually saw quite an uplift in terms of new customers. I think they acquired 1.5 million new customers during the COVID, because even though you could find everything on Amazon, there was still a lot of businesses that were impacted. And because it was part of the news, a lot of people said, okay, I can't really buy on Amazon. So kind of fled from another platform,
Okay.
from one platform from another. And also you had new entrants to e-commerce. People had never bought online, and then they went online and bought, and went.
Yeah.
And because they were
And
new, they didn't
and
go
we
to
don't
Amazon.
know, and AMS doesn't share how many new customers they have, probably, or yeah. Like asking questions which I know the answer for. It's like,
It's like I can give you the market share of Amazon, how much they grew, how much tax they've paid in France, all those kind of things.
of course, yeah, everyone knows that for sure. So, talking about Cdiscount, could we dive into a bit the differences, the main differences between Cdiscount and Amazon, like the pros and cons of each compared to each other, I think.
So first things first. I mean, we'll start by similarities because they have so much in common. Actually, in terms of price, you're going to go and have the same price on each platform. To be honest, okay. On the other hand, I'd say that Amazon is 99% self-service, okay, give or take. Sometimes you have somebody on the phone that actually helps you.
It happened to me this morning, actually. So yeah,
Um,
but rare.
yeah. Yeah, that's because you have a client
Yeah.
that does more than 10 million a year in revenue, right?
Well, sometimes doesn't even have a relationship to that. It's like finding the right person at the right time. That there's an element of luck.
Um, and then I'd say Cdiscount is about 50-50, right? So the advertising business is self-serve. They've actually created their own platform. They used to have Mabaya, which powers bol.com in the Netherlands, for example. But now they went full self-service with their own platform, launching a programmatic offer, which is quite close. So in that sense, on the way you operate on advertising is quite close. There's a few technical difference, and actually quite an insightful report that is going to be made available, I think, by September, which is the share of voice that you have on every impression in paid advertising. So that's actually quite exciting. You're always a bit struggling to know how, you're getting 100% when you're not spending any more. That's pretty much it on Amazon, right?
True.
And so that's going to come out. On the other hand, for the moment, in terms of search position, you only start from position 5 on Cdiscount. that's going to change. They're going to put position 1 and 2 available in on the search.
Okay, on the advertising, so you can't promote yourself too much. Okay, which makes the advertising less less interesting if you can't get the first spots, which to be honest Google is doing, Amazon is doing, so it's probably a bit strange not to be doing it too. Okay, so if you were to summarize like maybe the pros or
and the other thing is, for example, for the you're much more handheld, which is because it's less self-service. It's a bit annoying because you can't really do it in your own time. But then, you know, when you set up your product page, you have to send it by Excel. They have to validate it, and then they do a bulk upload rather than you doing the bulk upload directly, and then Amazon checking, sending it live, and then checking 2-3 days afterwards, right? Or you can do it manually to some extent. But on the other hand, you know, some of the pain points where you have to set up FBA with a client for the first time, which is always that extremely stressful moment of the life cycle of a client. Cdiscount is actually going to get an account manager to hold your hand during that process,
which is really helping you probably. Yeah. Okay.
And it actually, I mean, if you think about it, FBA is not that complicated if you follow the guidelines and you don't try to do things weirdly. But it removes a lot of the stress from the client.
Yeah, because there's always a small thing which is happening, or the system asking something new or things like that. So having someone support is probably makes a big difference. So if we were to summarize, so from what you said is Amazon on the one side, you have everything in your control, so you can push your content, you can do whatever you want, and that's like if it's late, that's on you. Or if it's early, that's because you were quick, so you have more control. On the other hand, is you're on your own because it's all automated, and on the Cdiscount, you've got less control, but you've got more support internally. Is that sort of the two
exactly
ways? Yeah,
and then you can negotiate with them as well. So you can negotiate your fee to some extent. The delivery cost.
Are they open to? Can you really discuss with Cdiscount? Say, okay, listen, on the marketplace side, for example, can you have a really good discussion or not really? Yeah. Okay.
You can always have a discussion with them.
Okay. Whereas Amazon, you can always try, but as nobody's answering, there's no phone number. It's complicated. Yeah, true. Okay, and like in the cons, or like if a brand had to decide, okay, specifically to the French market, which platform to go on, like would they go on Amazon and Cdiscount and Fnac, or on Cdiscount first? How would you approach that question?
It depends really on the category. Okay, if you're into laptops, games console, we talked about TV, you need to do Cdiscount. If you're into fridges, washing machine, audio, you need to do Fnac Darty because they still have a very big market share. If you're into, let's say, fashion or toys, you need Amazon. On fashion, you probably don't need Cdiscount except for very specific products.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely don't need Fnac Darty because they don't sell clothes at all, and nobody's going on that platform, even if though there's a marketplace in there.
Would it be correct to say that in France, e-commerce has an image of very low cost, of cheap products, and that some brands would like hesitate to go online because it would mean they're cheap?
I think there's definitely this cultural perception from brands about e-commerce being cheap. And I think that's one of the challenges that we are facing as marketers in France, which is, don't forget, in terms of advertising, two of the big holding groups were originally from France, which are Publicis and Havas. And the largest spender in advertising is based in France, which is L'Oréal. Actually, now it's Amazon. So Amazon's the number one advertiser in the world, and then it's L'Oréal. But you also have all those perfume and beauties, and the perception is because it's so cheap. There's this perception of it's like a big supermarket. So I'm not going to sell my Chanel products or my Hermes products in a supermarket, whereas it's not a supermarket. And you realize outside of France that all your third-party distributors are selling your products via the marketplace. So they're not really taking advantage of that. And I think there's a real challenge for those brands to have those pure players that are going to take market share, because they're better controlling, the way they advertise, the content, the delivery, the promise, and both the strategy and the tactical implementation. Coty, for which the European headquarters were based in France, is changing. L'Oréal is also taking notice of it and moving, but they're not moving as fast as they should be. As soon as they're going to, start taking advantage of the platform, I think that's going to be a radical change, because it means that very much those organizations are very multi-local, and they can do that centrally and be very efficient in that way.
Okay, and there's an amount of, when we're talking with brands, as we always say that sometimes you can use Amazon as a like a sales platform, obviously, but it's also a branding platform more and more, because a lot of people are going on Amazon before going on Google. So how do you in the impact of your for the brand as big as for the other countries, or is if you're on Cdiscount, for example, is it enough in terms of visibility of your brand, or would you still say if you want to do the branding exercise, Amazon is still a very important part of that branding, with brand stores, the way you present your content and everything?
I mean, for me, the real opportunity is to exploit the shopper data in a programmatic way, because that's how you can really create engagement with the brand. And then, yes, once you're on Amazon, make sure that you have the right content which fits what people are expecting, leveraging a store if that makes an environment in which you're more comfortable. But I think the one thing, but that's not specific. I mean, we're moving away from the subject of France, to be honest, but I think the programmatic opportunity is highly underused at the moment, very often because it's not really in the hands of the people doing the Amazon business. It's more in the hands of traditional marketers, the budgets. But if you're a brand, if you're selling, if Amazon represents 25% of your market share at one point or another, I mean, you should spend a very large part of your above the line budget, digital budget, exploiting that data more than you should be. You should put more money in there than you're putting in Facebook or you're putting in Google. Definitely.
Yeah, because it has a higher conversion rate, because it's directly pointed at people which will be buying, which you don't get really on Facebook. Now, Facebook has started to have maybe something, but Facebook or Google are not directly towards, are not selling a platform. So for sure. And I've realized also that a lot of bigger companies do have the marketing is another department. So you would have sales and the marketing. Oh yeah, you can't touch them. And you'll have those big agencies which are very big programmatic, which are doing a fantastic job, but are not such so knowledgeable on the sales side. So what you're saying is that how would you recommend for a larger brand or any company which is divided? Okay, I've got my advertising on the side and the sales side. So you have search advertising, which is a bit in the middle, whereas is that a sales exercise? Is that an advertising exercise? Not clear. And then programmatic, okay, that's branding, and we don't link. How how can they approach, or how can they transform themselves and saying, okay, how do you give that to sales team, or do you like make mixes of teams, which like I've seen brands doing programmatic advertising sometimes, and the content was not ready or their offer was not ready on Amazon. So you're saying, okay, you're probably throwing your money out of the window. There's a window here. So how do you approach that?
For me, it's the number one challenge. The number one challenge is making sure that you have commerce, marketing, and digital aligned, right? It's, let's face it, quicker and easier to put in place in mid-sized companies where you're very close to the CEO that he can make that actual decision, right? But those companies are going to be the most successful, right? Where the CEO realizes that he has that he's only making a third of his potential on Amazon because he only has a 30% share of buy box, because he's wholesaler are taking a product that they're selling that is designed to be sold in Poland, and they're selling in France, and therefore making more margin than the brand is making itself. And as soon as the CEO realizes that, then he puts the marketing people, the digital people, and the e-commerce and the commercial people in one room and say, okay, I can't be losing money, and you guys are going to sort it out. And that's where you need to have a real digital e-commerce task team, with the 2 pizza rule, that actually is going to put in place something where you make the most out of the Amazon opportunity. And I think beyond that, when I have my consulting pitches, I start with organization, but sometimes I go one step back. And you need to make sure that the people that work on those type of projects have the culture and understand the culture, and go back to the leadership principles. If you're not customer obsessed, it's not going to work out. If you're not frugal in the way you do things, it's not going to work, because you have to be frugal when you work with Amazon. You have no choice, right? And if you're not deep diving into the data, it's not going to work out, because you have so much data which is available out there on Amazon that you need to make the most out of it. So I think culture is actually the number one and the most important thing that you do when you set up those kind of teams.
Well, that's honey to my ears. Like in the consulting, when you're working on that side, trying to make people understand the strategic and cultural and organizational aspects is sometimes very complicated, because most of the time people come with an operational problem, but which is only an outcome of a wrong organization / strategy or other things. So I would totally agree. How do you see like for the general environment of how like the future, let's like dream of the future, how do you see, because today the world is still divided, with you've got big advertising agencies which are trying to learn about search advertising, about stuff, but they're still very far away of like retail in itself. Then you've got retail agencies, and you've got Amazon agencies which are a bit in the middle. How do you feel that is going to go? How will bigger agencies be able to adapt, or is that like, what's your feeling about that? Because advertising is going a lot into automation, into all these stuff. Amazon is changing the game, like and maybe less in France than in other countries. So we're going a bit outside of France. I'll probably have to remove my beret at some point. But how do you feel that going forward? That could what could happen, or what could?
So I don't think big holding groups are going to be able to do it. That's why they try to buy companies, and they do buy companies like 2Sales in Luxembourg. You're a close neighbor, and they're struggling to integrate it within the agency, because to be successful with Amazon, you have to be agile. You have to be a strategist one in the morning, a troubleshooter in the afternoon, and the logistics guy at midday, right? And you get, in agencies, you get some of the best strategists I've ever seen. People, they talk for 20 minutes and they figure out all the issues that you have, right? And especially ones you didn't even know about, right? And you'd come out as a client feeling that your product is actually better than you thought when you came into the meeting, So they're quite really good in terms of strategy, but they've never handled a campaign. Equally, you get really good tacticians within holding groups, but they're not agile enough to be strategic at the same time. So I do not see companies that are larger than a boutique be successful at Amazon, because you need senior people, you need people that are both extremely autonomous in what they do, but extremely rigorous at following guidelines in the way they operate. Why? Because if you move away from guidelines on Amazon, you're going to fail, right? If you don't follow a very precise and structured methodology, you're going to fail on Amazon. On the other hand, if you're not able to be agile because what worked 2 weeks ago has completely changed overnight and you didn't know about it, making you a fool in front of your client because you say, hey, I know how to do that. Oh, sorry, it's changed over the last 48 hours. You need to be both at the same time. You need to be agile. You need to be obsessed with performance, but also with brand equity. There's just so much things that you need to be able to do. And, in an agency, you're going to have very good people in each of those categories, right? That's not what good clients want. What good clients want, they want agility. They want people that be able to think and do at the same time.
Well, great insight. So the future will be exciting. So either we'll have mergers of big groups with smaller teams being able to have this level of knowledge plus agility, or there will be a reorganization of the space with more different players. That we shall see. I didn't open. Obviously, anybody having questions can join in. We are about the 45 minutes timestamp, which is the usual time we're having. Was loads of
how many of the questions did we actually cover that we prepared, and how
a lot erased.
How many questions went off topic?
I don't know. We don't have the data. We don't share data. We learn everything from.
You're so Amazon at heart, Jérôme.
Well, yeah. See, it's day one. Let's finish maybe, and if anybody's got a question, you can drop it on the chat box. Otherwise, let's finish on a positive note. Do you have maybe a success story or a good story of someone who got it well, who understood the French market and did it well, maybe with your help, actually? So
I have something interesting, because it's both a success and a failure, and learning and expanding at the same time. We onboard a new client. He's really excited. Obviously, he wants to launch mid-December. Who wouldn't, right? Best period of the year. We work day in, day out. Within 5 days, we've redesigned his account, launched, changed the content, launched advertising, right? Within a few days. Okay, there was about 15, 20 references, okay? Says, I want to launch advertising now. Okay, that wasn't the best idea. Prices were quite high, 20th of December, strangely enough. So after a few days, we say, okay, we have to cut off advertising. We're paying way too much. It just does not work. But slowly, because we've reworked the content, we're gaining, we're improving BSR. We started, it was about 5 sales a week or month. And then it becomes 5 sales a day, and then it becomes 10 sales a day, and then 20 sales a day, 30 sales a day. And we start to, we know in March, beginning of March, that we're going to hit his objective, right? The objective is to say, okay, if within 3 months you generate this amount of money each month, you have the contract for the full year. And then suddenly COVID arrives. Okay. So meaning
surprise.
Yeah. He can't produce anymore, right? Because he was producing in France, offices are closed and production units are closed. So that was the first thing. Second thing, he can't deliver anymore to Amazon. And for some reason, then everything starts to spiral. We're accused of price gouging when we didn't change the price on the products. I think everybody has. I was like, why does this happen? Not to me now. I've realized that everybody was accused of price gouging at one point or another, and then we slowly go back and we gain market share. We put that advertising. And the great thing is he hadn't totally moved to FBA. So he still had his logistics. So during the beginning of COVID, he still loses a lot of his BSR, unfortunately. But we're back on track. And by mid-March, by mid-April, we're hitting the volumes that we were hitting at the beginning of March. And now, we're way beyond the objective that the client gave us initially. So there's both this, we failed in so many ways because...
well, COVID, nobody can, full...
Yeah, but there's so much that you could have done better, you could have done differently, but, there was so much going on. And it's like, it's a roller coaster of both emotion and in terms of revenue. And it's like, we launched quickly, and we launched well, but we had to relaunch, and then we relaunched better. We launched better with better advertising.
Trial and error.
Yeah, with better content. And I think that's what COVID means to me at the end of the day. It's like...
the crash test.
Yeah, it's like I've launched a company. It was gaining momentum, and now I have to relaunch a company. But the second time around, we're doing everything better. We're more confident. Our offer is more structured. With the trial and error thing, as you said, there's things that we've improved both in our delivery. And I think this is, you had stronger grounds. I was building a castle while jumping in the air and trying to maintain the few clients that I had. But it's like we're relaunching everything. Everything is more excited. We've kept only the best in the company. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question here. Is when selling on several platforms, do you have the same inventory or you put apart quantity per platforms? These marketplaces you mentioned do they offer the FBA model?
So Cdiscount offers an equivalent to FBA, which is called livraison Cdiscount, actually at a cheaper price.
Okay.
That only takes into consideration the weight, not the size of the product. And they offer the same kind of things, which means you're going to ship part of your inventory into Cdiscount and another part within Amazon, and obviously, hopefully connect that into your supply.
And you would need several, like if you're having several marketplaces, you would need to have a warehouse, if not in France, somewhere to be able to ship the goods to the different warehouses of Cdiscount or of Amazon or of Fnac or of any other, right?
Yeah. So you need to split it. Obviously, I mean, you can do FBM or the equivalent and do it from your own warehouse, but you have to send in individually in those warehouses. On the other hand, you can still use the service of both Amazon and Cdiscount to deliver to other through other retail channels. So, for example, for Fnac, as a user, I receive parcels with the Amazon logo on it, whilst I purchase on Fnac.
Yeah, it's a multi-channel delivery system of Amazon.
I'd say Cdiscount is less costly, especially if you have warehouses in France. So you ship to Cdiscount, and they can ship your other retail channels. You know, your direct to consumer can be shipped through Cdiscount or Amazon. So you need those two, and the rest you can just use their delivery service across platforms.
Makes sense. I have a second question. I'll have a quick translate. Do you think the value? So for luxury brands, what's the value added of doing a launch on Amazon rather than going? So that's probably other
Net-a-Porter and Farfetch.
Yeah, who have got an audience which is very specific to luxury and fashion products. So the idea is like Amazon. It's often a question we have is Amazon is a generalist. Like they have all products. Does it make sense to launch like a niche product, like a luxury product on Amazon rather than on niche platforms, which are like Net-a-Porter or Farfetch? What's your take on that?
It really depends on the market, I'd say. I think from a luxury standpoint, it depends on the market, it depends on the product. If you're going to sell an Hermes bag or Chanel bag, don't sell it on Amazon, right? Because you want those products to be spare. You want those products to be sold only in your shops. So there's not even a question of Farfetch and Net-a-Porter, to be honest. On the other hand, if you're selling, let's say, glasses, belts, accessories, perfume, what we see is that, for example, Christian Dior does about 3 million euros of revenue in the US only on its perfume line. So given the size of LVMH, it's not very big, but it's still 3 million a month on that platform, which doesn't go directly to Christian Dior because that's done by a third party. So for a fashion brand, you have to consider Amazon as part of your mix in the way you do it. I'm quite passionate about that because I think luxury brands, they shouldn't go black or white on how they consider Amazon as part of their mix. Like 15 years ago, they were all, we'll never have an e-commerce website. What we saw is Anna Wintour and Jeff Bezos uniting to help designers of New York during COVID to expose the brand. So if Jeff Bezos and Anna Wintour, which are possibly two of the most opinionated people in the world, are united for a common project, it means that at one point or another it's going to make sense. And
we come back to a branding side, right? Too, like it's going on Amazon is also exposing your brand to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's like mass advertising a bit.
And equally, if you're a fashion brand, so we're taking that prism of Europe and the US, but in reality, if you're a luxury brand, a real luxury brand, you cannot go, you cannot not consider the Chinese market because that's 30% of your revenue and 100% of your growth because Europe is not growing at the moment. US is in not very good shape either at the moment. So you need to have presence with Alibaba's Tmall, and they have a specific session which is called Pavilion. And believe me, if you see, and same thing for Taobao, if you see the price of a Taobao partner, they call the TP, they're going to ask you 20,000 euros just to shake your hand, and they're going to ask 20% share of revenue to promote your brand on Taobao and Tmall and so forth.
Oh yeah, that's another. Well, I have another question, and thank you for that. Is what do you think of Cdiscount retail, so 1P, versus Cdiscount FBA or Cdiscount livraison or Cdiscount FBA equivalent? So the 1P versus 3P on the Cdiscount part. How would you compare them?
So to give you an idea, Amazon, to compare, Amazon sells directly about, I think it's 11 million products, and there's 320 million products available on Amazon with the marketplace. On Cdiscount, they're selling directly about 500,000 references, but you have 65 million references sold on Cdiscount. Okay. So it's obviously less than Amazon, and the share of marketplace versus retail is about is 50-50.
Okay.
And
how
again,
when a brand, why would a brand choose one or the other? Like on Cdiscount, 1P versus 3P. Is it a 5 hours strategic workshop I'm asking for in an answer, or is there a simple answer to that?
I'd say if you're purist, you choose third party. I mean, you choose it being a seller. If you're a bit less of a purist, you choose to be a vendor. I personally believe I like the seller approach more. I think it's a better sandbox because it's harder to exploit, but when you're good at exploiting it, you make better results and better revenue.
Okay, that will be our
yes, Paul,
parting word. Yeah.
Exactly the same as Amazon. It's the same type of approach. It's just you're a bit more handheld on Cdiscount that you're on Amazon. Let's say that Amazon is 99% self-serve platform approach.
Yeah.
When you're a seller, I'd say that Cdiscount is about 70-75% self-serve and a bit more of hand-holding. So you're going to be less agile, but those moments where you're a bit stressed, you're going to have a bit more support.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Lawrence. We try to stay in within the hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So it was great. Loads of insights. If you want to reach to, thank you very much, Paul. If you want to reach out to Lawrence, you can go on LinkedIn, and yeah, you can. Lawrence will share his email address, and if you want to reach out to us, you've got our email. So thank you very much again, and have a great evening, everyone, or morning if you're far away, or night if you're even on the other side of the clock. Bye, everyone.
Or dinner.
Yeah, like something like that. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.